Greetings from the IFES family globally, and it's really coming home for me since I left 2 years ago from East Asia. This is the first time I'm coming back from an East Asia conference, so thank you for giving me the privilege to be here. You know, when yesterday when we had our opening, and I looked at us, and I said among us, I knew that I was sitting in the presence of men and women, 4 kinds of men and women. First, the men and women who have lived the years and left their footprints and paid the cost of living out their faith. And you know I'm talking about the most senior ones among us. And they're still here with us today. And I felt very privileged to be among these men and women who have been here over the years. Second, I felt that, I'm in the midst of those of you who are just beginning the journey of wanting to make the difference through your career, through your service. And I'm thankful to see many of you here. I also know there are some of us who are maybe lost. Maybe we are searching. What is it that the Lord wants us to do? Or we are confused. Or maybe some of us even find our jobs, our work meaningless. And the last group of people, which is a majority of us here, I felt I'm in the midst of people who have given themselves, who have paid a lot of the cost, and yet we have run out of fuel. We're tired. We're tired, and maybe somewhere along the line our vision is lost, or maybe our passion is dwindling. We need more energy. And for all the 4 groups of us, it is to us that this theme speaks. Pataas ut hadayo. Yeah. Then we will rise up. The Lord will raise us up. And we will continue with tenacity and resilience so that we can run towards the Lord and bring glory to His name. Shall we go to God in prayer? Triune God, we just invite your presence in our midst. We know that you are already here, and we thank you that you are the sovereign Lord in uncertain times. Holy Spirit, will you move among us and open your word to us? Lord Jesus, will you take your place as the Lord of this conference? And Heavenly Father, you who sustain all things, will you sit with us, among us? Holy God, holding on to us, helping us to rise up. In Jesus' name I pray. Invite us right at the beginning to put our lives. Is there a screen somewhere here that I can see? This is not working. Yeah. Thank you. So I would like us right at the beginning to put our lives under the microscope and to ask ourselves, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 is we are a nobody. And on a scale of at 5, we are a somebody. Yeah. What do I mean? In English, when you say you're a nobody, means you have no influence. In English, when you say that person is a somebody, you are saying that person has influence. Influence to make a difference in other lives. So think about your own life. Put it under a microscope and ask yourself, just spend 1 minute asking yourself, on a scale of 1 to 5, what is the number you would choose? Are you a nobody, no influence, you don't make a difference? Or are you nearing number 5 where you are a person of influence? So please take a moment to think as we go along. You are opening your Bibles to chapter 1 and 2 because we will refer to it from time to time. And then let me begin. As we start this first Bible exposition on the book of Esther, I would like to bring to you a nobody called Hadassah. A nobody called Hadassah and a nobody called Mordecai, and how they were moved. They were pushed upward and to a place they never imagined they would be. A place of influence. They were pushed, not even that they wanted it, but they were pushed to become change makers. And you know, the book of Esther, you are very familiar with the book of Esther, but you will know that these were men and women. A man and a woman, nobodies, made into somebody's by the Lord. Yeah? And again, while we are thinking about them, because we're familiar with their stories, I would like you again to just jot down this next thing about putting your life under the microscope. If you were to draw your lifeline, alright? A lifeline, if you have a free page in your booklet, just draw a line. And those of us who are young, that means you are 40 years and below, I would like you to chart your life in 5-year quadrants. Those of us, see, I include myself in the us, who are 40 and below. 5-year quadrants, chart your life. And those of us who are above 40, chart your quadrants in 10 years. 10 years at a time. And I hope, you are thinking through your own life and you are able to look at your life from this perspective. What changes have you seen in your life, even when you were young? Your influence journey. Maybe already at, when you were 5 years old, you were a leader of children, you were the ringleader, maybe. For good, influence for good, okay? As we grew into our youth, chart your life, think about your life. You may not be able to complete it now, but it's good to think because God is always doing something in our lives that is connected. God is always doing something in our lives that is connected. And so, now we enter this story of some Jewish people, a generation of Jews who did not return after the exile. They chose to live in Persia, and they chose to be live their lives as part of that powerful kingdom. The kingdom of Persia was not just a powerful kingdom. The kingdom of Persia was a kingdom of extremes, and you will see this soon. As the opening chapter of chapter 1 of Esther begins, we are walking into the story where there is a party taking place full swing, a banquet. The king has thrown a banquet. The king on the throne at that time is Xerxes. And we walk inside there, and the place is Susa. In I don't know about Indonesia, but in Malaysia, when we say Susa, means difficult. in Tagalog as well, yeah. So my friends, they are having this party in Susa, and it tells us probably it's during the winter, because that's where the king usually goes to make his home during the winter. One of the 4 places he goes to make his place during the winter. Then we speak some of the verses. I hope I'll be jumping. I hope you are following me. Esther chapter 1, verse 1. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes. The Xerxes who ruled over 120 provinces stretching from India to Kush. At the time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa. And in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes and the nobles of the provinces were present. For a full 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and the glory of his majesty. When these days were over, the king gave a banquet, another banquet, lasting 7 days, in the enclosed garden of the king's palace, for all the people from the east to the greatest who were in the citadel of Susa. Verse 8. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink with no restrictions. For the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. Queen Vashti also gave a banquet to the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes on the 7th day, when the king was in high spirits from the wine. He commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him, and I won't read their names, to bring before him Queen Vashti wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to all the peoples and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. But when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. Then you fill in the story. He was so angry, he decided to consult with his advisors. What should he do? And if you look at verse 16, one of the advisors, Memucan, replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong, not only against the king, but also against all the nobles and the peoples of all the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands. So what is the verdict? They decided that she will be dethroned, no more as queen. Alright? And then I'm jumping to chapter 2. Some time has passed, and then the advisors again came and said, maybe you need to look for another wife. Alright? So they decide to look in the whole of the kingdom for beautiful women who will go in and be prepared at least a year long, so that they will look beautiful for the king to choose from. Now let's jump to verse 5. Chapter 2. Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish. I hope you're taking note whose son or descendant he is. Who had been carried into the exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, among those taken captive by Jehoiachin, king of Judah. When you read this, I hope you know that this is the first exile. The first group of people that were taken exile, King Jehoiachin and all the nobles were the first to be taken. So probably Mordecai belonged to that group of nobles, which is why you always see him, you and I, if you sit at the city gates, you think we are wasting time. But Mordecai is always sitting at the city gates, a place where honored people are, where judgments are made. They are people who are somebodies. Alright? And I probably think Mordecai was one of those nobles that was taken in the first exile. Right? Verse 8. When the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought to the citadel of Susa and put under the care of Hegai. Esther also was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Hegai, who had charge of the hero. Verse 10. Esther had not revealed her nationality and her family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. I missed the part where Mordecai had adopted her because her parents had her. Let's stop here and let's continue the unfolding script. Yeah. You walk into this kingdom and you see a narcissistic king. Verses 1 to 7, chapter 1. Xerxes, or known as Ahasuerus, ascended the throne in 486 BC at the age of 23. A young man, and he knew he had made it to the top, the most powerful throne in the kingdom. And he reigned until 465 BC. His kingdom was vast, how vast? From Kush to India, 127 provinces. Where is Kush? Probably somewhere near Egypt. Alright, somewhere near the Nile. Yeah? And his pride was so vast, if you look and read, for 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth, the vast glory and splendor and majesty of his kingdoms. And then after 180 days, another 7 days just for the region of Susa. Yeah? That was his king, a very narcissistic king. But you need to know something else. He was planning. The reason he showed, everybody was there, all his military leaders were there, and the reason he was showing his wealth and power was because that was the same time, in the 3rd year of his reign, was when he threw this banquet. He was trying to take over one more province, Greece. So he wanted all his military leaders to see how powerful he was, and so that they will come and join him, so that they can conquer Greece. But to cut the long story short, it didn't happen. But that was one of the reasons for this banquet as well. Yeah? But it was a dangerous kingdom, my friends. Very dangerous. Why? Decisions are made under the power of wine. When they were drunk, queens are deposed. Narcissistic tendencies are strengthened. You get upset when somebody doesn't obey you. Who was the queen who was deposed? Queen Vashti. She decided not to come. And commentators have been arguing about why she didn't want to come. They still cannot agree. But the popular thinking is that while she was having her own banquet, let me sidetrack. I wondered at one time how heavy is this woman, because they needed 7 eunuchs to carry her, but to bring her. Why 7 eunuchs? Probably because she's the queen, she will sit in in a litter, something where you carry, and she's sitting in the middle, and 7 men are about just the right number to carry that thing into the king's palace. But the reason she might not have come could be because she needed, when she appeared before the king, probably to be immodest in some way. Alright, she had to display her immodesty. Maybe. We're not sure. But another thinking is this. Vashti could be another name for the Persian queen called What's the name? Armistice. The one who gave birth to Artaxerxes, the heir of Xerxes. So probably she was really at a late stage of her pregnancy, and for her to expose herself in this way may not have been the best thing. So she refused. For whatever reason, she refused. And guess what? She was deposed because of that. More than that, you see the nobles, they didn't see this as something happening to the king. They took it as it's happening to all of us. What she did means that all of us will be looked down by our wives. And so they gave advice to the king. Save your face, save our face, and get rid of her. And how sometimes today we make decisions based on those kind of reasons. Those kind of reasons. And it's in the midst of this, my dear friends, in Esther chapter 2, verses 1 to 7, you see an orphan's saga. The word saga means a long, dramatic, twist and turn full of stories. Esther or Hadassah, both names were used then. Yeah? You realize she was an orphan taken care of by her cousin, Mordecai. But you know what? Even in the name that she has, I felt that was already God putting a prophetic twist to who she would become and who she would be. You know, the meaning of the name Esther means morning star. And the morning star is the star that continues shining even when all the other stars have stopped shining. It's the last star to stop shining in the darkest of nights. And that is the meaning of her Persian name. But her Hebrew name, Hadassah, means myrtle. And you think, what is myrtle? It's not the opposite of turtle. Myrtle is a plant. And it is mentioned in Isaiah 55 that instead, God's prophecy is that instead of briars and thorns, the myrtle will grow. And you know that cannot happen. Thorns and briars will never become myrtles unless the Lord Himself does a miracle. And so her name stood for something prophetic that God was about to do. And even you know that she was raised by her cousin, and I think, you may not agree with me, he probably was a significant man, a decision maker in Xerxes' kingdom. Yeah. But she too was taken in compulsion into the harem, into a hostile land in the year of the 4 years, in the 7th year of King Xerxes' reign. How do I know? Because if you look at verse 16 of chapter 2, it says he put a crown on her head in his 7th year. Right? So she was taken in probably a bit before that. And for 1 year she had undergone this beauty program. Now I'd like to stop at this point and ask us this question. I hope you will take time to discuss in 2s or 3s the answer to this question. The question is now being displayed. What are some things in your life currently, or in your nation currently, which you feel you have no control over? Because Esther was just taken like that, no control. All the women were taken just like that into the harem, no control. Think about your own situation, maybe your workplace, your families, or maybe even your country. Like just now we heard about Hong Kong. What is happening in Hong Kong? My friends, think about it. I'll give us 2 minutes to discuss with your neighbor. Alright, you can turn to the back. We don't want to talk to the same person we are seated with all the time. Can we do that? So 2 minutes to talk, and I won't be hearing what you talk, so you can talk anything.
amazing. There's a lot of things, right?
Yeah. I think yeah.
There's few things you can control, and there are things more than there's a lot that you cannot control.
Yeah. It's especially something if it's related to the power and authority as well. Even though if it's just you also cannot control it.
So let's think about it in our life, like personal life.
Something that makes you feel helpless.
You have nothing to care.
You have no power over it.
Actually, I think for these days, before like the ambitions, like it's only interesting not to enjoy it. If you do not like test and be under the authority of Christ, be under control, especially for those actually the men these days, when we have actually I have a team of the men and when we talk about the trouble we are going to pray for and we are patient, we want to step out and actually sometimes we can say most important like the mom of the trouble that is the future and they are growing very the thing we like to see. So I think that's also the thing that's important to show because you also admire.
You have 1 more minute to talk.
As a man,
It's so hard to control, right? So we actually none of us don't have the method what we call how to practice which word. That's we say which word small people. And we can test things together. We pray the word of God, test, and prepare the word of God.
That's interesting because a lot of men, especially the we're not paying enough to hear pray. So we better have this group that deeply by another person.
Yeah, it's so hard to hear about that.
Yeah.
But one of the rules of this thing is you need to be consistent to what you can say. So not just
Thank you, my friends.
So actually from the camping we have 3 things like not hide from God, hide from all others, and not running away. That the slogan.
I'm having my doubts.
We have.
What you were talking about. Some of you were laughing. I'm not sure whether you were talking about concerns that burdened you, but you were laughing. I don't know what you were talking about. But it doesn't matter. But you know, there are things that sometimes we feel so helpless about. And as young people, or even older people, we feel tired and we don't want to care anymore. And sometimes that's the reason we have nothing to talk about. Because we don't want to care anymore. But you know what? When Esther was taken and Mordecai had to let her go, I looked at this and I called it a dangerous favor. Why? She was being taken captive into the harem, king's harem. Alright? She's not going to be able to get out anymore. And yet, here is something that is burdensome, that is something that is dangerous for their life. But you know what? It became the entry point. It became the turning point where God raised her into a status that was very powerful. That God put her in a place of influence. And sometimes difficult situations, helpless situations make us have to rise up and do something. And we never know that is the turning point, defining moments of our lives. And you know, my friends, when we look at chapter 2, verses 8 to 14, the harem was not a nice place. Those of us girls who love beauty treatment and all those things, yeah, you get it for free in the harem. Don't need to pay money, don't need to pay so much of money. But you know, the harem is a You go and spend, if you read the scriptures, you go and spend one night with the king, and then you are taken by another door and you end up in the harem. But you're not free to marry anybody. And if you're not called, you are lived like a widow, a perpetual widow in that harem. And there were 399 such women in that harem. Not only that, perfect beauty was demanded. You cannot have something here. You have to be washed, white as snow. Everybody has to be a snow white. It was difficult. You know? Did you see the treatment? 6 months they had to be washed with myrrh. I don't know for what. And then another 6 months with perfume. Okay, I didn't come up with this. It's inside the Bible. Alright, the Bible also gives us beauty treatments. But it was a demand for perfection. So that when you go to see the king, you will be perfectly beautiful, if such a thing could happen. But 12 months of their life wasted. I will not go for such beauty treatment. Thank God, no harem in our time. She is in danger. She walks into danger because once you're in the harem, you cannot get out. But more than that, she's in danger because she's a woman with secrets of her own. Her adopted father, Mordecai, told her, don't tell anyone you're a Jew. More than that, once you're in the harem, you cannot meet with anybody. They'll think you're a loose person if you leave the harem to go. But every day, you read chapter 2, every day her uncle will come to meet with her, to help her, to hear her story. So, it was dangerous. It was a dangerous place in that prison for her. And yet, you see from verses 9 until 18, this woman found amazing favor. First with the keeper of the harem, Hagar. Immediately he saw her, she found favor with him. And you see that in verse 8. And then he put her in the best place in the harem so that she can, have the best treatment. But it also says that everybody in the palace court found favor with her. So somehow, something was breaking through, or somebody was breaking in on her behalf, that she found favor. Right? And of course, when you see verse 17, now the king was attracted to Esther more than any other woman, and she won his favor and approval more than any of the other virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Wow! He set the royal crown on her head in the 7th year of his reign. From a nobody, an orphan, she became a queen. Usually, royalty marries royalty. God did that. Sorry, I'm jumping the queue. God did that. But, it is favor from God. How can a nobody become somebody top up? Somebody move mountains. My friend. But guess what? Look at verses 19 and 20. Verse 19 should trouble you a little bit. Let me give you the clue. When the virgins were assembled the second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Why do they need to gather a second time? The queen was already appointed. The king obviously was a womanizer. He still wanted more beautiful women in his harem. Alright, so they were still continuing that although the queen was there. And then the next verse, but Esther kept secret her family background and nationality, just as Mordecai had told her. Now you are wondering why keep it quiet? Why? Some places I go, I don't tell people I'm Malaysian. It's dangerous. They don't want to know you're Malaysian. Let me tell you one. If I wear a batik and go to Indonesia, that will be a fighting point between us. Alright? Who is the original maker of batik? I go somewhere else and then we are the first to do this. Anyway, Malaysia is not good for many things, so no worries. Just like that, why did she keep it secret? You will find your answer in chapter 7, verses 12 and 13. Many people were afraid of the Jews. In the whole province, people had heard about how the Jews were always favorites with God. God always fought for them. Many people were afraid. So she kept it secret. Okay, that was a secret. And then she kept her relationship with her uncle or her adopted father secret. You know, that her cousin Mordecai is the one who raised her, and that he was very nearby. The other thing is that every day they had hidden communication. And then if you see the end of the chapter, there was one day that Mordecai was sitting at the gate when he overheard a plan to assassinate the king. He quickly told Esther. And then Esther told the king or king's officials, and they went and checked it out. And they found it's true, and they put to death, and the king's life was saved. And it was written, chapter 2 ends with this, it was written in the book, alright, the book of annals in the presence of the king. All this important information. I have a question for you. A woman with a changed destiny, or rather, a woman with an intended destiny. What about you? Where are you? Are you in the wrong place? Or are you in the intended place that God has for you? Where are you? You know, I told you I was in the presence of people who have left a mark. I feel very privileged to be here. When I was a student, I studied in a university in Penang, in USM, University Science Malaysia. There was a person who graduated as a dentist, but he never practiced as a dentist. When I met him, or maybe he did, but when I met him, he was pastor of the Georgetown Baptist Church. Every month, at least once, if not 2 times, he would come and give us Bible expositions in our Christian fellowship. And that is where I began to learn my Bible as a student in campus. Today he's here, he's going to be one of our plenary speakers, Dr. Tan Su In. A dentist. In the wrong destiny or in the intended destiny. That God made him a pastor and he has impacted a lot of us. In my 2nd year or 3rd year of staff work, the first time I came out of my country was to the Philippines for the EAGC in 1989. My small group leader is still here. Rudy, he was the leader of our small group. People who introduced me that IFS is bigger than just Malaysia. But more than that, in the first EAGC I attended in the 90s, I went to this workshop, Developing Your Christian Mind. It was taken by a lady, so I decided to sign up. I went there, and I understood nothing. And I'm like, I wonder what it will take to be like this woman. Ate Melba Magay was doing the workshop. She has influenced so many of us how to become a salt and light in our society and to stand courageously. Look, my friends, was that what she thought her original destiny was? No, but in the hands of God it can be something. Yeah, so you can be a queen with a secret, with the hidden relation, with hidden communication. But please know this. When God changes your destiny, it is an intended destiny. Very quickly. These are all people whose destinies were changed. This person spoke with a list. They called him a disappointment and a boy of low intelligence. Winston Churchill, the one who became Prime Minister of England. This person, somebody called her too ugly to become an artist. Meryl Streep won 3 Academy Awards. This person was rejected. Steven Spielberg from the movie School. A guitarist, singer, famous Elvis Presley, legendary musician. 20 different publishers turned him down. He was a famous children's writer. After his fiancée died, he failed in business. He lost elections many times. Nervous breakdowns. 8 different elections. Abraham Lincoln. His own company that founded Firedays. Steve Jobs. His music teacher said, as a composer, he's hopeless. My friends, Ludwig van Beethoven, legendary classical composer. Okay, this one I don't want to comment because she's not my favorite. He left imagination so the newspapers hired him. That's who he is. No original idea of Walt Disney. His teacher told him he's stupid. Can't learn anything. Stupidity can make about light bulbs. After cut out from basketball team, he went and locked himself and cried. This is the life story of Michael Jordan. The recording studio said they didn't like the sound and this group has no future. We oldies will be shocked at this. The Beatles, legendary rock band. And the story goes on. He wasn't able to speak until he was 4. He couldn't read until he was 7. Everybody worried he was handicapped. Albert Einstein. My friends, I showed this to you not so that you can become Abraham Lincoln or you can become Winston Churchill or anything else. God has a destiny for everyone. Where you are now, you need to think. You need to think. And why do I call him the divine author? The whole book of Esther is employing a literary device called peripety. Peripety is the way you tell the story, all right? How impossible things have unexpected outcomes. And so the whole book of Esther is about impossible things and how there is an impossible outcome. A device used, a structure of reversals. And you know what is the beauty of the book of Esther? The powerful absence of God. The powerful absence of God is part of the genuinity of the book of Esther. That God is all-powerfully present when He is most conspicuously absent. I repeat myself. That God is most powerfully present when you feel is most conspicuously absent. So we see, my friends, unseen at all times in the book of Esther, moving against senseless decisions and senseless leadership. You see the unfolding of the plans intentionally, unwaveringly by God. And so amidst unreasonability, you see God raising His child, covering her under His wings, a Jewish orphan amidst a hostile land. And He unfolds a plan. Yahweh has His way, even in the dangers of the time. And she finds favor in unlikely places. Not all the favor she found was from her own family, like Mordecai. She found favor from strangers like Haggai, and from even foes and enemies, the king, and later on you will see him. I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you in your personal history and mine. Let us learn to look at that quadrant of our life and read our stories. Look at the twists and turns, the pains, the situations. Read the author. What is God up to? What is He allowing? Why is He allowing this? Look for His fingerprints. Look for the defining moments. You may see something there. Read the dots. The dots are connected. God is not an unconnected God. Everything that happened from the time you were small to now, there's a connection. Read your lives, my friends. That is how you will know how you can live your intended destiny. And I want to say that in exposing His call to Esther, to you, to me, God doesn't abandon us, but He must love us. Oh, no one is abandoned, not even those in exile. Not Esther, not Mordecai, not you.